I'm hearing the news that the Wladamir Klitschko Jennings fight is in trouble. I've seen this reported in various sources. I think Boxing Scene, certainly on Boxing Forums, certainly on Twitter. It's quite telling that despite the fact that it's been accepted that would be Wladamir's next fight for, the last month or so, there's not yet been an official announcement. We're in mid-January now, and the fight's due to take place in April. Yet there's been no announcement as of yet, and we're hearing reports that negotiations have stalled. Now this is interesting to me. I'm suspicious of what is actually going on behind the scenes here, because, let's put it this way, if Jennings doesn't take the Wladimir Klitschko fight, he will most likely fight next against the winner of Stiverne Wilder. Stylistically, I think that's a much easier fight for him to win. But financials are a concern. The reported purse for Jennings to fight Klitschko was between sort of $1 to $2 million, and it was suggested that Jennings could hope to achieve the higher end of that, $2 million. Now, if Stiverne beats Deontay Wilder, which is certainly the outcome I see as most likely, Jennings should bear in mind that Stiverne's last opponent, Chris Arreola, was only paid $80,000 to fight Stiverne for the world title. So there's a big discrepancy here. Stiverne's only previous world title opponent was paid $80,000, whereas Jennings could potentially net around a $2 million purse for Wladimir Klitschko. I can therefore see why a guy like Jennings, who probably hasn't earned huge money in his career, I don't know if he's still holding down a full-time job, but up till recently he was still holding down a full-time engineering job. You can see why he'd go for the money, even though it may well be a more stylistically difficult and tough fight to go in against Klitschko than to go in against the Bermain Stiverne. So I can't understand why Jennings would have rejected these deals. I mean, financially it just wouldn't make sense. If Jennings pulls out, Klitschko's left in a position where he's got a fight booked for April the 25th in America. I think it's broadcast on HBO with no opponent. What does that mean? Well, to me it means he's going to fight one of two guys. Both of them are American heavyweights, both of them are in their 40s, and they go by the names of Antonio Tarver or Shannon Briggs. For me, it's not impossible that Klitschko and Team Klitschko has been very, very difficult in negotiations with Jennings to make Jennings pull out, so that they can take an easy voluntary fight against Shannon Briggs. I view Antonio Tarver as a much tougher fight than Shannon Briggs, actually. I think Tarver brings a lot more to the table, but I think Shannon Briggs is the most likely, given all the media attention he gets. And I think Klitschko wanted to fight Briggs. We know that he's got the potential to take an easier voluntary. Look at the likes of Pianetta, John Mark Mormek, etc. So I think he perhaps wanted that fight. He wanted a big money fight. He wanted to fight an American heavyweight. He wanted a fight that's going to get attention. It's going to be relatively easy. But he couldn't go ahead and announce it because of all the criticism. So my thoughts are that potentially he has looked to go down the Jennings route, because that's, Jennings is a credible guy, top 10, whatever, and then make it so difficult for Jennings he has to pull out. And then he can only really fight Shannon Briggs, because it's got to be a HBO opponent, it's got to be in America, it's got to be someone who's available to fight. There isn't that big a list of guys, and before you know it, Shannon Briggs, with all the attention he's brought to it, could be one of the more realistic opponents. So my guess, I'm a bit suspicious here that Jennings wouldn't reject these negotiations unless the Klitschko team were being utterly unreasonable. And my guess is the reason for their behaviour is because they quite fancy a fight against one of the boxing pensioners. As I say, I quite like Antonio Tarver. Shannon Briggs I see as an easier fight, and perhaps a fighter who's going to bring even more attention than Antonio Tarver. Don't rule out Briggs Klitschko even at this late stage. Let me know your thoughts.